Welcome to PCI's TechTV mini-series, Getting Started with Python and Geomatica. In this second episode of the mini-series, we will be creating our first Geomatica script using Python. Our purpose is to show you how easy it is to begin writing a Python script using Geomatica's geospatial and remote sensing library, or functions. This is even true for beginners with little to no coding experience. For this first script we are going to develop, there are a few key concepts we are going to introduce. These include basic Python structure and format, defining variables and data types, importing modules, and calling functions and passing arguments to them. It's okay if you're not already familiar with these concepts, as we're going to discuss these concepts as we introduce them when writing our first script. With that being said, let's get right into it and write a script that calls Geomatica's pan sharpening function in order to pan sharpen a Landsat 8 image. Here on the screen right now, you can see that we have the original resolution 30-meter multispectral Landsat 8 image. Now, after the pan sharpening procedure, which we use the high-resolution panchromatic or black and white image, and combine it with this or fuse it with the multispectral colors, we're able to generate a 15-meter or a higher resolution multispectral image or pan sharpened image. Now that we have an idea of what we want to accomplish, let's create a simple Python script that executes this process. So let's access our online documentation. So we can go to Help, General. We're just going to search for the PanSharp keyword. We're going to open up the PanSharp2 function, which is the enhanced function. Click on Python for our environments. And now we get access to the different parameters and description and details about how to set up the Python or the PanSharp2 function within Python. Now that we have our resource, we can open up or go to Tools here in Focus, go to our Python scripting window and begin entering our Python code. So the first thing that we need to do in our script is import the PanSharp function. So for this we can go from pci.pansharp2 import pansharp2. So what this does is it tells Python where to look for the PanSharp2 function itself, or the code itself, for when that function is being called. The next thing we want to do is to set up our parameters. So we can go into here and we can see what parameters are available to us. Now we don't need to set them all up. For a lot of these parameters we can just use the default. So in this example we're just going to set up the parameters that are required for what we want to accomplish. So here we can go file I, so we need that as our input file. We also want our input multispectral channels, our file I underscore pan. This is our panchromatic file. Also, we want to know the input channels for the panchromatic image that need to be used. And then finally, our output file, which we'll just call file O. So we're now going to assign or set up our parameters and assign them to these different variable names. So to set up these initial parameters, and also keep in mind that you can name these whatever you want. It's just important that we map them correctly to the PanSharp2 function. So I'll explain that in a moment. So the first thing is we need to set up our input multispectral file. So for this I can go to my Landsat 8 image. I'm going to go to the metadata file, the text file. I'm just going to close Shift, right clicked. I'm going to go to copy as path. I'm just going to paste that in there. So you can see that because it's a string, we're assigning this variable as a string, we need to provide the quotes in between the actual path itself. The next one is the DBIC, which is the input channels that we're going to use. We can see here that this is an integer. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass it as a list. So to start this list, we're just going to use a square brackets. We're going to pass channel 2, 3, and 4, which in all Landsat 8 images, channel 2 is the blue band, channel 3 is the green band, and 4 is the red. So the next one that we want is to set up the panchromatic file. Now in this case, we're also going to point to the metadata. Now to differentiate these two, what we need to do is we can add a little suffix at the end here. So for the panchromatic I can go -pan, and for the multispectral I can go -ms. So also as with the earlier, with the multispectral image, we need to define which channel we're going to use. So in this case channel 1. And then lastly, we just want to provide the location of where our output pan-sharped image should be written to. So I can go here, I'm just going to copy that in here, and I'm just going to remove this and just write it to the Landsat 8 folder. We'll call it psh_l8.pix. Now another important thing to do is if you're going to use the paths directly from Windows, you should put R in front of your strings. And this will just tell Python to read these strings exactly as they are and do not interpret any special characters. So now the last thing that we need to do is we need to call our pansharp2 function and then map our parameters to the correct arguments. So to just simplify this. Okay, so we have file I here, and it just depends on the location, so just follow our documentation when it comes to this. So dbic is set, dbic ref is not set, so we can see if we go there, it's an integer. So I'm going to default this just by sending a blank list. File I pan is set up here, dbic pan is set up here, file O is also set, and the rest of these are not. So dboc, this is also a integer, so I'm just going to send an empty list. And the rest of these are strings. So I'm just going to send empty strings. And this is how we default parameters. Okay, now that we have this set, we can save. Go save as. We're going to call it l8psh.py. So it's our Landsat 8 pan sharpening script. And then we can execute this. And as you can see, it's now running. So we can let this finish. So now that our process is finished, we can take a look at our output results. So we can close this. We can close our scripting window. We can go to our pansharp 8 file. So you can see that we created this one. Just make sure to load these in the correct band combination. And there we have our high resolution Landsat 8 image.